Senator Henry. My apologies, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I do understand that we are not perfect, and of course we will eventually get it correct as we go through some of these protocol issues as it relates to our processes here. Madam President, I want to thank you and to acknowledge the time that your preliminary contributions in terms of you being away, representing this Parliament in Trinidad, as well as acknowledgement to persons who have left us, and highlighting some of the greats among us. It is indeed refreshing to know that persons like Chelsea, Nina Compton, Levin Spencer, and the likes of Darren Summy, even he was not mentioned, is still around. And whereas we have the greats leaving us, we are happy to know that we still have rising among us more great ones. And like my father always reminded me, you know, a pied banan ka porte yon wejin fig, mais only one can wish tonki ka porte pli fig. So even one goes, then there are others to come, and we are happy this morning for Levin Spencer, Chelsea Foster, Nina Compton, Darren Summy, and the others who you have mentioned. Madam President, we are here today to continue, as it were, the discussion on the business of St. Lucia. And of course, which can best be described as a country in a state of uncertainty. Uncertainty about where we are going and our priorities. And of course, I will explain why. For some might ask, why am I saying that we are uncertain? The answer to the questions where we are going and our priorities are the very compass to our existence. These cornerstone answers are the ones that unite. These cornerstone answers in terms of where we are going and what our priorities can bring about the best St. Lucian relationships in this Parliament, in our institutions, in our schools, our homes, and even on the playgrounds. But the absence to the questions about our desired destination and our priorities is the reason why we continue to have, as it seems, unproductive debates and discussion here. And of course, if I choose to say, much warmongering among parliamentarians at times. The absence of a collective agreed destination may be the single most important foundation any government can lay. And the absence of such cornerstone answers may be the very reason why this government seems unclear, vague, and is at sea when it comes to the business of St. Lucia. And I will explain to you further. When we are vague and unclear about where we are going, coupled with a worldview that we do not have to account in this life, or even in the life to come for the things that we do, the people will go deeper, and St. Lucia will find itself together in social and economical degradation. Madam President, I'm speaking to the motion, and this is just to precede what I'm going to say. Madam President, the government continues to be in a state of flux. On one hand, we continue to be in a state of crisis in most vital sectors: agriculture, health, tourism, the construction sector, I am aware, the manufacturing sector, business and transportation, climate resilience and disaster preparedness, while we are attempting to administer some sort of resuscitation to one vital sector of the economy, the education sector. So I see the government, as it were, a medical doctor attempting to remove a tumor from a patient's brain, but while stabbing it in the heart at the same time. Let me explain. We would not realize the desired gains in education to propel us into the future that belongs to our children if we do not take their health as a serious matter. I repeat, we will not achieve the desired gains in education of our children in the future if we do not appreciate and understand that their health is a serious matter. If they are not healthy, we will not be able to maximize their intellectual potential. And Madam President, there needs to be more than a nexus between education and health. Education, like health, inequalities are driven in large part by the social context in which we live. Where we are born, where we work, our situation. And of course, the government to a large extent is responsible for the condition under which people live. Madam President, health and education, they exist in a way that a lot of us who probably can separate our resources to achieve some of the things we achieve do not understand. Madam President, there are persons in St. Lucia who would give up the rest of their life and go to the grave to protect the rest of the resources for their children's education. There are families who've had to make that hard, cold decision that I am no longer going to invest on chemotherapy because my daughter needs to finish her education. And Madam President, these are not poor people. In our last 10 years ago country poverty survey, 24% of our population, which is above the poverty line, is vulnerable to poverty. Some of them are called working poor people. And once they lose their job, they are subject to poverty. And they come to the realization they have to make some hard, cold decisions about life and death and education of the children. Why am I saying this? You see, government is expected to significantly contribute to the condition under which people live. So while some people can invest millions into lengthening their lives, some people, in order to bequeath a little money to their children, would accept death. So when we are governing, Madam President, in a hit or miss approach, sometimes windfall might fall in our direction. But it also exposes, Madam President, the ad hoc manner in which we are governing, the ad hoc manner in which this government is taking the business of St. Lucia forward. Had this been planned or deliberate agenda of this government, we would have heard pronouncements. And of course, had this been a planned agenda by the government would not have approached the health situation in the manner in which it did. Madam President, to make this point even clearer, and of course, since you all have asked me and begged me to be brief, I will attempt to be brief, but it would help if you allow me to make my contribution without much disturbance. The purpose of education, as intimated by John Dewey, a philosopher, and also as espoused by a known writer, the leader of opposition and member here should know, Ellen G. White, is to prepare people to live in the society, and not just to live, but to make a contribution to the well-being of mankind. It is the harmonious development of all the faculties, the intellectual, the physical, the social, the spiritual well-being of a person. This is what true education is about. And of course, Madam President, true education will create a person, and in that person, you would be able to reflect the likes of a Derek Walcott, a Sir Arthur Lewis, a Levin Spencer, a Darren Sammy, a Nina Compton, a Chelsea Foster. True education will create one person with all of these attributes. This is what lies directly at the path of government when it comes to development. And that's why there is more than a nexus between education and health. And I dare say, Madam President, true education do not only prepare you to make a contribution in this life, but I dare say for those who believe in the afterlife as well. For like a mother would prove to you, from conception, a mother starts the process of caring, training, educating, and protecting the life of a child. From the cradle to the grave, the process of education and caring is experienced. How can a government speak of education but ignores the situation of a health problem, a health crisis of the very citizens of this country? And I ask, I'm not to cast blame on anybody, but I'm thinking, had there been a solid, focused agenda of the government, a plan that is engraved in the hearts of all St. Lucians, that we all understand where we are going, you would not treat health in the manner. And I'll continue, and I'll take my time like the Americans when you disturb, because I do not plan to stay here long, but I would like to make my contribution. So, Madam President, true education, or education is not possible without a deliberate and purposeful health agenda. They are two important functions that takes place simultaneously. And I mean, Madam President, I'm sure there are many mothers in this room who would understand and appreciate there is the function of protection of life, and there is growth and development. And it starts from conception. Protection of life in the mother's womb. What you eat, what you drink, and how you continue to help develop that child in the womb. And the nurturing starts to take place. And from this process, all to your grave. You know, even while I was over in Dominica, I reflect on the Parliament. I reflect on this Parliament. I reflect on every one of us who sits here to come and make our contribution. There are times we laugh, we smile at certain contributions, just to create an atmosphere that maybe I'm not serious. But words that are correct and right do not go unheard. You may wish to disagree with me or say it in another way or find something wrong with me. But when you laugh at serious contributions like that, it tells me how serious you are about the business of the people of St. Lucia. Go ahead, laugh. Madam President, a good mother with children are not perfect individuals. Some of them may lack knowledge. But that is why they attend clinics. That is why they are trained in pre- and postnatal caring of children. A good mother who is not perfect attends parents, teachers, PTA meetings because the children, the caring of the children is always in focus, education. A good government would likewise consult and listen and seek advice and subject themselves or himself to the views of others. Not laugh when a contribution is being made in this honorable parliament. No. But I take it, the fountain of wisdom appear to lie on this side of the house. So you go ahead and attempt that you are solving all of the problems in St. Lucia. For you, so we cannot, Madam President, govern using a hit or miss approach. So we are here today, like some good mother would tell you, that some mothers do things just because somebody else is doing it, not that because they are caring. Some could not be bothered. But of course, everybody take the children to school. You send your child to school as well. Everybody's going to clinic. You go to clinic as well. So everybody's borrowing monies from the Caribbean Development Bank for something. So you borrow monies as well. Education is the menu that they have. You take it for education. But what's the motive? Is it for the appropriation of contracts? What is it about? I'm asking the question. There's nothing wrong in asking the question. You have to account. You have to account. So don't be afraid of the question. I'm making a contribution to this honorable house. What is the motivation? Is it because we care about the well-being of St. Lucians and we advance in the education agenda? And if so, why? Health was not taken seriously. Why did we? Why? But I'll tell you, Madam President, and I'll ask that we do not play games with the lives of St. Lucians. We must not treat the business of St. Lucians. Some people in St. Lucia can't afford, when they are sick, to get on a plane, use their visa or their means of connection and find themselves in the best hospitals. I cannot afford. I have had to deal with it because a lot of middle-class people, a large percentage of us, if you want to know how wealthy some people are in St. Lucia, is when the stroke hits. Not even Pampers they can buy for 1 month straight. If you want to know how well the middle class doing, is when the heart starts to rock and the cardiologists tell you that your cholesterol is way up, your pressure, and you have all of the conditions for heart failure. It is that time.
Madam President, I would like to invoke Standing Order 37-1, please, Madam President. And it says that, subject to the provisions of these standing orders, debate upon any motion, bill, or amendment shall be relevant to such motion, bill, or amendment, and a senator shall confine his observations to the subject under discussion. Madam President, I know there are times that you can give some leeway to our senators, but this debate, the motion speaks of education, but for some reason, Madam President, it has become a debate on this side of health.
Senator Henry, I think you've made the point. You made the connection, And could you please now continue your discussion and confine it to the subject under discussion?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam. Madam President, I have difficulties in trying to understand why a parent would not appreciate the fact that there is a deep and serious connection between the issue of education and health. I have a difficulty with this. As a matter of fact, Madam President, I can speak education. And it's all about the well-being of children. How do you profile a child in the school, Madam President, who is showing behavioral problems? How do you appropriate the right environment for a child with certain disorders? And how do you characterize these disorders? Is that why we have so many young men, Madam President, who ought to be at school but at Bordelaise and at the Boys Training Center? Do we have the medical capacity to see their true medical problems? My goodness, Madam President, I am totally surprised. I am surprised that parents of St. Lucia, parents in 2018, who are seated in this house to represent St. Lucia, do not understand and appreciate the close nexus between health and education. A healthy child can exploit their true educational and intellectual potentials. A child who is suffering is unable.
Senator Henry, please proceed with the discussion at hand.
So, Madam President, I will, since I'm being hindered to make my point, I will bring my presentation to a close. And it's unfortunate that that this is the approach that this House would like to take. But I've heard debates in here, and I will leave the rest for you to judge. And I will never call on your attention to stifle anybody's contribution, Madam President. They can always proceed. But I will make this final point, Madam President. The state of this country, as it relates to where we are, it can be felt by everyone in this country. You can see it, you can feel it, you can hear it. And all our senses are in touch with the situation. So, Madam President, as I close, I do hope that the education investment that we're looking for will also help young people maybe be trained in caring for horses. Because it is an area that is being promoted here as a possible area of intervention. Horse riding. We need training in horse riding so we could get jockeys. And of course, and if you are able to ride well, you may be able to ride horses and bring resources to this country. Because, Madam President, the Prime Minister has shown us in the US how you can ride your way out of poverty.
Madam President, again, I invoke Standing Order 37-1. Have a seat, please. Madam President, Standing Order 37-1, please, Madam President. Standing Order. Thank you. Madam President, I'm going to read it again, Madam President. I believe that if the member doesn't have anything to say on education, he should take a seat and allow the other members to make the contribution pertaining to the bill that's before us. Again, Madam President, the Senator shall confine his observations to the subject under discussion. The member now moved from health now to horses.
Senator Henry, please confine your observations to the subject under discussion, and please proceed.
Madam President, the subject for discussion is education. the investment alone for education. And we need to read the resolution that is before us, Madam President. Be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to borrow $16 million from the Caribbean Development for the purpose of financing the St. Lucia Education Quality Improvement Project. Improvements. What are you improving? And I dare challenge that there are new areas that we can explore for investing and educating our people in. You have a difficulty with this? Then this parliament should not exist. But of course, Madam President, I suspect the horses that won the races in Kentucky justify an audible makes a loud noise to St. Lucians because it was audible and justified, sandwiched by a horse that came second called Good Magic. But the horse that came last was Blended Citizens, and the horse that came 15th was Unfulfilled
Madam President,
Promises.
again, I will vote.
My mic is on. My mic
sorry
is
about
on.
that, Madam President.
So, Madam President.
My mic is on, Senator. Senator Henry, please stop the wittering.
Madam President, I'm finishing now.
Please stop the wittering.
So, Madam President, I've made my point, and I've stated, and I support the philosophy of John Dewey, and I support the position of a good writer, Ellen Golden White, who've promoted that true education is the holistic and harmonious development of all of our faculties, including our social, our intellectual, our physical. And I dare say that when somebody, or when we can achieve true education, we will be wise like serpents. We will be strong like a wild lion, but also we will be as mild as a butterfly. Amen. This is what education does. And I do hope that this government understands, because the people are aware, that you are moving this country in a state of uncertainty, for your actions do not demonstrate that you understand where we are going. And this ad hoc manner of moving with agendas, just because somebody else is doing it, is not adequate. We must bring all our plans together. We must have buy-in. There must be broad consultation. It must be the people's business from the start and to the end. This high suit approach, cravate, avec camisole, bagay sa la, c'est pas ça, c'est moun nou vle. Yo vle nou vin parler, yo vle plan, nou kay porter yo devant. Parce que yo même ka fait décision qui très difficile. Le yo ni pour ça, bay la vie yo. Point la mort, parce que yo vle voyer ici au l'école. Yo pas kay dépenser l'argent pour faire qu'on yo vive plus longtemps. Et nous-mêmes ka vini pour bâtir plus grand l'école. Combien de millions de dollars? 16 millions de dollars américains. Presque 42 millions de dollars pour dépenser à sous l'école. Et à même l'air, nous pas qu'à valeur pour finir l'hôpital. Nous qu'à jouer avec lui. Qui manière ou ça dit ou mêler et on m'a maille ou voulez voyer l'école, mais ou pas mêler avec santé yo. Ou c'est un gouvernement avec même manière en famille qui a fait décision pour famille ou caillou, c'est même manière ou même qui a fait décision. So même si vous voulez du bout moins pour dire ça qui devant là c'est éducation seulement, c'est éducation. So vous voulez maouer moins pour me dire ça seulement. Mais c'est moun non connaître plus meilleur. Merci Madame Présidente.